how all of our public spaces and the places we play are available to everybody. That'll convince,
My most rewarding experiences are working with Miracle League, and my most rewarding experience is bringing student athletes to that event. So, okay, anything else to add on that? I think I'm looking to see if we have any questions, and so far I do not see anything through, so I can ad-lib like nobody's business. So
I've got one point if we don't have a question. I think one of the things that I found really effective is, as a researcher, and all the data that I have and we have at our hands, is to making that accessible to stakeholders at the grassroots level that can use it for their own purposes, to advocate, to write grants, to get resources, to convince people that women coaches matter. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get asked, well, why should we hire women? Who cares? Why does that matter? And I turn to the data to say there's a lot of data that supports the fact that same-sex and same-identity role models matter for everybody. And girls oftentimes do not grow up getting a same-identity role model, but 100% of boys get a coaching male role model. So I think to use the data to make the case for convincing people to be more inclusive or to hire more women or whatever it may be, sometimes data speaks the language.
Okay.
Two other points I'd make is, one, for years I've worked in coaching education and I still believe in it, but in the last decade I've kind of switched that we need to think about recruitment. You need to get the right people on the bus. So maybe leagues need to think about, I have a recruiting coordinator and I'm looking for talent, whether it's high school kids, I'm looking for people to bring in that get the philosophy. So that would be one. The other point I'd bring up is with diversity inclusion, okay, I'm a white old male. So I need to talk to Ramona. What's it like to be a black female? I don't know, I'm not one. And we have open discussions, educate me. And the same, with, what's it like to be a 14-year-old girl? I think we need to ask and listen a lot to learn about different groups and different populations and how it's different. And sometimes today, we get into such political correctness that you're worried about saying it wrong, that sometimes we don't get, help me understand, educate me, so we can do a better job.
Reach beyond your own circle, I think is the thing, yeah. So our fearless leader is here, and so we will hand it over. I want to thanks again to a great panel. I hope you guys got something from the day and enjoy the rest of it.
Yeah, Bridget, Dan, Julie, Nicole, thank you so much. Coach training is obviously very core to what we talk about within Project Play and are hoping to help drive forward. So 3 years ago, we got a call from the Wilson Foundation and the community foundations in Greater Buffalo and in Southeast Michigan. And they asked us to come in and landscape the state of play for their regions. Can you take the 8 plays in the Project Play framework and help us understand where our communities are in terms of how we're doing in free play and trained coaches and all the other principles? Also, what's the best data we can collect about which sports kids are playing? How many of them are physically active? What do they want? What type of experiences they want? So we said, sure, this is a dream situation, especially because the Wilson Foundation, the community foundations, were willing to put, take action on these state of play reports once they dropped. So here we are 3 years later, and a guy who doesn't wear pro sports jerseys is wearing a Pistons jersey. But thank you to Arn Tellem and Awanate and the team for producing these. They've got my name on the back. They gave me 2 jerseys. I have 2 sons. They're both clamoring for them right now. So thank you to them. So each year now we announce 2 new communities that we are going to help landscape the state of play, working with local partners, bringing in our knowledge of what good looks like in youth sports, the 8 different plays, the filters, and then using the tools of journalism to give you a real-time snapshot of where your community is, because you cannot manage what you cannot measure. We work with local task forces who have this local knowledge. We listen very hard. We do a lot of in-person interviews, group conversations, we collect a lot of data, and we produce these reports, these 40-page reports. This year, yesterday, we released the Hawaii and the Seattle King County reports. And today, we are really proud to announce our 2 new community partners. One would be in Camden, New Jersey. And the sponsor of that report is the Harris Family Charitable Foundation, or more specifically, the Sixers Youth Foundation, which is the foundation of the NBA's Philadelphia Sixers. Marjorie Harris is co-founder of the Harris Family Charitable Foundation. She's a board member on the Sixers Youth Foundation. The Harris Family Charitable Foundation is dedicated to improving lives and strengthening communities through the transformative power of sport, enhanced wellness and leadership development, and has made grants to sports programs in underserved communities that have impacted the lives of thousands of youth. Similarly, the Sixers Youth Foundation is focused on strengthening communities by establishing basketball and other programs for youth of Camden, where they have a training facility, and in Philadelphia. So we'd love to bring Marjorie up to the stage here, and she can share a few thoughts with you about this project. Marjorie?
Thank you, Tom, for that introduction and for all the work you do to support the youth of our communities by ensuring sports are available to everyone. I've been involved with the Aspen Institute's Sports and Society program for a few years now and have found their insights and recommendations to be thoughtful and actionable. The projects provide a roadmap for communities to implement effective sports programs that work for them. That is why I'm very excited to be here today to announce the partnership between the Philadelphia 76ers Foundation and Aspen Institute's Project Play to conduct a study for Camden, New Jersey. Although almost 35% of the children in Camden live below the poverty line, the high school dropout rate is over 30%. Camden also suffers from tremendous crime. My family has been committed to the principle of using sports to build leadership skills, character, and improve academic outcomes for our youth. We believe it's a critical mission to help strengthen the communities in which we live and work. We have been active in bringing after-school programs to Camden and have seen the success these programs can have. I have had the opportunity to visit many of the schools and programs we have funded and love seeing the enthusiasm and engagement of the children as they learn new skills and face new challenges. It is what gives me the greatest joy. The Sixers Youth Foundation's mission is to use the power of sports to inspire and educate future generations in the communities where our fans work, live, and play. We build and renovate basketball courts across Philadelphia and Camden. We fund youth basketball programs, and we participate in programs that combine academics with sports to attract kids and improve educational outcomes. It starts with our children. We can impact their lives, and we must. The next generation of great leaders who will make this world a better place are among the children in our communities, and we have an obligation to help every one of them achieve their full potential. By partnering with community leaders in Camden, we will be able to make a significant difference by identifying ways in which the community can better provide and support sport-based programs that deliver the outcomes we are all striving for. This is a challenge we are excited about tackling and are fully committed to the children of Camden. We look forward to presenting the report next year and executing on the recommendations. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can just go down there. Well, thank you, Marjorie. We are excited to get started. Camden is a community where we think a really great story can be told, and it starts with taking measure of where that community is right now, how well it's serving kids. So thank you again. This year, we're also excited to announce a new regional partnership in Ohio for the State of Play Central Ohio. We are thrilled to be embarking on this journey with the Columbus Foundation and 2018 Project Play champion, the Lindy Infante Foundation, among other partners. Here to announce State of Play Central Ohio is Dan Sharp, Vice President for Community Research and Grants Management at the Columbus Foundation. Dan?
They've been electric, and we are thrilled to have Central Ohio as the next State of Play report city. By way of context, our community, idyllic suburbs, historic neighborhoods, but also neighborhoods that are feeling left behind and neighbors who are feeling left behind. As a region, we are the 15th largest city in the United States, which makes us a larger city than San Francisco. We're within a day's drive of half the United States population. We're expected to grow by 1 million more people by 2050. We find ourselves at the top of many lists and rankings from top educational institutions. We have more than 130,000 college students at 50 institutions within the region. We are home to 15 Fortune 1000 companies. We're tops on those lists for female entrepreneurs. Columbus in the region is number 1 in the Midwest and 12th in the United States for millennial migration. But we also have tremendous challenges. 17% of our population is living in poverty. We have a stubborn infant mortality issue that is 3 times as worse for babies of colors than it is their white counterparts. You can tee up a golf ball, swing, have it sail across a river, go from one neighborhood to the next, and experience a 20-year discrepancy in life expectancy. It's just unacceptable. And as a community, we are hard at work to solve those challenges. And the youth and sports and recreation disparities mirror all of that as well. And so that's why we are thrilled to be partnering with the State of Play Central Ohio and 2018 Project Play champion, the Lindy Infante Foundation, to bring radical collaboration to this effort. And collaboration is something that Columbus does well. It's noted in a Harvard University case study on collaboration called the Columbus Way. And we will be deploying that secret recipe to this topic and this process. So today, on behalf of the Columbus Foundation, the Lindy Infante Foundation, the Columbus Recreation and Parks Department, the Columbus Youth Foundation, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and the Chris and Lori Holtman Foundation Fund, I am pleased to accept the challenge and the responsibility, but also the honor of being the next State of Play Central Ohio city. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tom.
So for many youths, parks are really where joy begins to stay active. And large sports centers, they're great, but people living within a mile of a park are 4 times more likely to use it than those who live farther away. So our next panel will explore creative use and development of play spaces, including the trails and greenways connecting neighborhoods. So to moderate, I'd like to introduce J.J. Tai, who serves as the director of the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation's Parks and Trails Initiative.
Good morning. I'm really excited to be here today and to listen to all this great discussion because this is so important, such important work that gets done in this room. And it's not just because I've been asked to speak or that I love what I do at the foundation, but it's because I'm a parent of 4 boys. I see these pressures every day that our kids are taken from rink to rink to field. They're asked to compete. But the joy that I get as a parent is when they come home after playing a pickup basketball game at the YMCA and they're joking with each other about a step back three or a crossover that they made. That's where the joy is, and that's what I love seeing as a parent. As you heard from our president and CEO, David Egner, earlier in the summit, one of the foundation's primary focus areas is active lifestyles. Within that, the foundation's investment has been in parks and trails and youth sports and rec, and that started back in 2016. But last year, in the fall of last year, in October, on what would have been Mr. Wilson's 100th birthday, we made a significant announcement. We announced $100 million for parks and trails in Western New York and $100 million for parks and trails in Southeast Michigan. And these spaces are so important for our communities. They give us a place to connect, where we all can connect from all backgrounds. They also connect our communities, and they provide places for recreation that can have a profound impact on our health. They also provide an opportunity to be anchor assets for economic development. I think we have some slides. Not sure if you can move that backward. There you go. Here in Southeast Michigan, half of that investment went to a signature space that's not too far from here. In fact, if you walked out of the Rensen here on the riverfront, took a right on the water, and walked about a half mile, you'd end up at the West Riverfront Park. It doesn't exist today, but in 2 or 3 years, that's what you'll see. This park really provides an opportunity as an anchor to a broader regional trail system. If you look at this map and you see the circle in the center, that's the city of Detroit and the riverfront. But you can see that broader network of regional trails, and the other half of our investment, the other $50 million commitment, is to eliminate those gaps in regional trails throughout the region. And we're going to talk to Anita Turdesky here in a little bit about one such investment, and that's the Downriver Link Greenway that connects 21 communities that goes from Detroit south towards the Ohio border. And it's part of the Iron Bell Trail, which is a statewide initiative that goes really from Detroit all the way to the western half of the UP. We're fortunate in both states to have the statewide initiative. Here in Michigan, it's the Iron Bell Trail. And in New York, it's the Empire State Trail. And that Empire State Trail goes from New York City to Albany, all the way across the state along what used to be the Erie Canal, and connects into Buffalo. And on the other end of that trail, in the city of Buffalo, you'll see another park. It's not there yet, but it will be. Another commitment for Western New York, a lead commitment of $50 million to create a signature space on Lake Erie. But it's not just about these big investments or these capital investments. It's about those small places, those small, simple plays within our communities that can truly make a difference. So we've layered on additional investments. In 2018, we formed a partnership with the Tony Hawk Foundation and Kaboom to build innovative play spaces and skate parks across both regions. And thanks to the State of Play report, we found that this was something the community both needed and wanted. Both of these organizations are focused on community engagement, listening to what the community wants before they do something. And as a result, over the last 2 or so years, we've built 12 new skate parks, 8 large playgrounds in both regions, and over 44 innovative play spaces where kids can play every day. These investments are local. They're built with and for the community, and they're woven together by this connected regional trail system. Also leading the way in the city of Detroit is the Detroit Pistons lead, with a commitment to build 60 basketball courts across the city of Detroit. And our team has worked very closely with Arn Tellem and his team to figure out how to layer those investments into some of these larger park investments. So I'm really excited now to bring up a dynamic panel. Mayor Byron Brown from the city of Buffalo, Anita Turdesky from the Downriver Link Greenways, and Arn Tellem, Vice Chairman of Palace Sports and Entertainment and the Detroit Pistons. Please help me welcome them to the panel. Thank you for being here this morning. Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming all the way from Buffalo this morning after some exciting news yesterday, so thank you for making the trip.
Great to be here, JJ.
So I thought we might start in Buffalo, but before we do that, is there any news from behind the stage? I know you guys were talking about your basketball skills, and Arn, you were talking about maybe bringing him on board.
We need more three-point shooting. I think he fits the bill. I was talking about multitasking. I don't have on my sneakers today, but I have been known to drain a three-pointer or catch a TD with these shoes on.
And not to be left out, we're talking a little basketball, but the Bills are 2-0 as well.
The Bills are 2-0.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think we should jump right in. There was a major press conference yesterday about the Skyway, and we talked a little bit about the park. There's a lot going on in the city of Buffalo, a tremendous amount of momentum, and I just want to hear a little bit about your thoughts about what this means to the citizens of Buffalo across the city.
Well, Buffalo is going through a real renaissance right now, as you indicated, tremendous momentum. We are working hard every single day to keep that momentum going. All of our public policy really flows through a focus on embracing our diversity and focusing on being inclusive and equitable in everything that we do in our community. We, like many cities across the country, face some public health challenges with our youth. So childhood obesity, gun violence. We're very fortunate to have a very active, collaborative police athletic league that works with our network of community centers, our Division of Youth, and our Parks Department to make sure that young people are exposed to sports and recreational activities. So being able to be here at the Aspen Institute Project Play Summit, certainly very important to us because we want to focus on all of those things that we can do to keep our youth active, to keep our youth engaged in sports and recreation, because we know that when youth are active, when youth are involved in sports and recreation, there is higher educational attainment. Children do better in school, quality of life in communities go up, and neighborhoods are stabilized.
The work that you all are doing in the city of Buffalo is truly amazing, and it's, we see the stuff that's happening on the waterfront, but it really is across the city, and I've had a chance to tour with some of your staff. What challenges do you face as you continue to kind of balance the investment that's happening in the downtown and on the waterfront with the balance of the community?
So the challenges that we face are making sure that the prosperity that is rising in our community reaches all neighborhoods, reaches all sections of our city. We're trying to build a city of opportunity for all people, where no one is left out, where no one is left behind. And I mentioned a couple of the challenges that we face with youth. But a focus on equity, inclusion, and diversity, critically important to us, making sure that resources that are coming into our community are spent in an equitable way and that they reach all sections of the community.
Right. And I've seen your involvement with the Police Athletic League, the investments in the Olmsted Park system, parks across the city. What role do these public spaces and sports play for the children across the city of Buffalo?
Well, first, JJ, let me thank you, Dave Egner, the Wilson Foundation, for the extraordinary commitment that the foundation has made to the city of Buffalo. Over $100 million being spent on parks and trails in the city. Beyond that phenomenal expenditure, during my tenure as mayor, the city has spent over $70 million on parks and playgrounds and youth facilities in the city because we recognize how important sports and recreation and having outdoor facilities are to the development of our young people, to the growth of our young people. So I feel very blessed to be in a city that prioritizes that kind of spending. I've had great partners in the community, the Olmsted Conservancy, our Police Athletic League and Board, the Buffalo City Council, and all levels of government in our community that are all pulling in the same direction and investing in a strategic and smart way to move our community forward.
I'd like to transition a little bit. We talked a little bit about Olmsted and the connectivity that's there in Buffalo, but I'd like to transition to talking a little bit about Southeast Michigan. We saw the regional trail map that's there, and Anita, I think I met you probably 2 or 3 years ago now, and you've been working on this initiative in Southeast Michigan since 1998, I think, as a volunteer.
Yes.
You've put a lot of time and effort into making the Downriver Link Greenways what it is, really sharing the vision, talking about it, and working at the grassroots level. It's seen a lot of momentum as the Iron Belt Trail and the governor's initiative, Governor Snyder's initiative with the Iron Belt Trail, and it became part of that. And I was blown away by one of the meetings we had in our foundation offices where there was 30 or 35 individuals that came into the office to show their support when you presented on the initiative. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about the initiative, what it intended to do,
Okay.
and just share your great work.
Great, thank you very much. Downriver Link Greenways Initiative, as JJ indicated, started in 1998, and it was actually the work of our beloved Congressman Dingell. He pulled together Downriver Summit, basically put all of our stakeholders downriver in a room and said, what can we do to create a better quality of life? And for those in the parks and recreation business, we were very excited. Out of that rose are natural resources, because we've got unique geography here in Southeast Michigan. We've got the Detroit River, we're close to Lake Erie, we've got some great water trails. So that kind of moved forward. Within about 3 weeks, we had raised $50,000 grassroots and from our communities, put together a master plan. And our thought process was, let's put a couple trails into the ground and kind of use them. We called them our keystone projects. And the idea was to see if we could really do this kind of grassroots. So 5 communities, 5 funding sources, and that occurred in about 2001. Fast forward to 2019, and we are now 100 miles of trails. But the really cool thing, JJ, is number one is the partnerships and the support that we have downriver, and it's not just, it's just quite honestly, it's just not municipalities, it's nonprofits, it's residents. We've seen a huge economic development in our small business community, and I can share a little bit about that. It's amazing. So.
It truly has been, and for those, I know we don't have the map up, but this connects 21 communities, and it also connects to the anchor asset that we talked about on the riverfront here in Detroit. And it really has been about partnerships, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about the partnership with the health system, with the municipalities, with some of the local businesses, and why it's so important for them.
Our partnerships have been, I think, really unique because they're kind of a layered approach. We, through Downriver Link Greenways, a little bit more history is we just really worked, as you said, as volunteers. Mary Bowling, who is my co-chair, co-president, both of our employers supported this initiative. But about 5 years ago, we created a nonprofit, and we used that as a tool to help our communities and other organizations move our initiative forward. And we basically, it was just, quite honestly, neighbors helping neighbors. We'd put 1 or 2 really good projects in, and basically our residents came to us and said, wow, this is really cool. Why aren't we doing this? And the next community said, well, why aren't we doing this? And within the last 5 or 6 years, our tipping point was we had almost 100 miles in, and we had a couple great things happen. First of all, Beaumont Health System, which is a very large health system here in Southeast Michigan, started what they call a Healthy Community Project. And City of Trenton, which is kind of sits in the heart of our trail, was selected. And it was selected on their trail system and how they can use their healthy initiatives and trails and combine everything. So that was really great for us. In addition to that, our small business community, a lot of businesses along the trail started realizing how many people were going by on their bicycles and walking, and they'd come in and they'd say, why are all these stores here? You know, what can you do to help support our travels? So we now have businesses that are actually small businesses that are actually locating, and they're calling Downriver Link Greenways, and they're saying, where would be a great place for me to put my business? I want to be on the trail. Some other great partners is Friends of the Detroit River. We partner with a lot of other nonprofits, and it's just been organic, and it's layered. You know, I guess, JJ, I thought a lot about this question, on my ride in this morning, and really, quite honestly, it's just good people doing good work and helping each other. There's really not like a magic bullet that I can say, particularly those in the planning world, that was anything, we've had some great master plans and we did a gap analysis, but it's basically Downriver looking at their story and realizing what a great asset they have, and people, boots on the ground, everyday people just doing their work and moving the story forward.
It's really neat to see where you all started with some of the partnerships, and as we look at different investments, we talk about eliminating gaps in these regional trail systems. You start to see some parallels, and we recently made an announcement on the Genesee Valley Greenway, and the feedback was, well, this has always been envisioned as part of our health needs assessment, and what this could mean for the communities that are along the Greenway. And you hear what you all are doing in the Downriver communities and Beaumont's commitment as well to support those communities because it's part of their health needs assessment. And we're seeing that same discussion happen with the Empire State Trail. So it's really interesting to see those parallels. And it's not just about eliminating a gap, but it's what it means for the people that live in those communities. One last thing I do want to ask you about is it's not just about the partnerships and eliminating the gap, but you're also sharing this as a story on inviting people from not just those downriver communities, but from around the region to come to the Link Greenway with your Destination Downriver plan. Could you share a little bit about that?
Sure, thank you. Destination Downriver. Traditionally, downriver, we've always had a difficult time telling our story. We've got a very active Southern Wayne County Regional Chamber, and tourism has never been kind of high on our list. And rightly so, very economic development driven. And as a result of all the trails and all the infrastructure and all the program, we've had grassroots programming going on all the time. A group of us, like-minded organizations and individuals, came together, and it's basically, how do we tell our story? How do we tell the world what a great place that we live in, and how do we encourage people to come and visit us? So out of that came Destination Downriver, and we started a coalition. We've been in existence going on about a year and a half now. And the idea of the coalition is to put like-minded organizations, individuals in the room, and help us solve that challenge of how we tell the world. So we are now in the process of creating some videos. We've got all of our mayors on board. We're working very closely with the Detroit Convention Visitors Bureau, and very excited. We've created a logo. They have supported our initiative. In fact, it's Go Time Detroit. It's also going to be Destination Downriver, Give It a Go. So it's been, very good. And just, again, I guess words of advice or words that I would say is that when you take these things on, you're not necessarily there to solve it all, because if you think about it, 100 miles of trails, tourism, and all, it's daunting. It's just little increment steps of finding the right people in the right room that are excited and got the vision, and giving them the right tools, to move things forward.
Well, I'd like to transition back to Southeast Michigan and Arn, your team. I mean, a lot of exciting news over the last couple of years with the team coming back to the city of Detroit in Little Caesars Arena, and it's been great. I've brought my kids down to several games. The energy that's in the stadium has been great. But you're also making that significant commitment in the community across the region and across the city. Could you share a little bit about that vision and kind of what the interest was with Palace Sports and with the Pistons in making that commitment?
Well, it started with the move, or our decision to move back to Detroit. I mean, I've been here now 4 years this month. I moved from Los Angeles to Detroit. And really, the first observation was an NBA team has to be in the city. It can't be in the suburbs. And when we had to play a role in Detroit's revitalization. And it was critical to our mission. And when we made the decision to move, in talking to the mayor and the city leaders, we made a decision to be all in on Detroit in every way. And so the second part of the decision was to move our headquarters, so our basketball team would practice every day and our business offices would be in the heart of Detroit. So that building, in partnership with Henry Ford Health System, will open sometime this fall, hopefully next month. Hopefully it's on budget, on time. And we're very excited about that. And that building is unique. Our practice facility was designed in a way that wasn't going to be a fortress. Most practice facilities for professional sports teams are walled off from the community. The vision of our practice facility and headquarters was to be connected to the community and make it part of the community. There's no walls, there's no fences, it's right there. And to use our facility not just for the Pistons, but for the community, for camps and clinics. So that's one piece. The second piece of the move was, in our discussions with the city, was how can we improve and participate in what's happening in Detroit to make it better for all of its citizens. And the mayor suggested to me, and early on in our negotiations, that he wanted us to rehab 60 basketball courts. And we had a long debate about this, because my view was basketball is played indoors and we should do it indoor courts. But he really was committed to, when we talked about Detroit, there is a business, and I think the mayor hit on it very well, it's really to make it all-inclusive. There's really no recovery in Detroit unless you touch the neighborhoods and you reach all the children, improving the schools. And really what part of our mission is to improve the lives of young people in Detroit and creating partnerships with other organizations like the Ralph Wilson Organization where we can create positive change. So we decided to accept the mayor's challenge and rehab 60 courts. And once we started to do that, we realized it's not enough just to do courts. If we're really going to revitalize these parks, we have to create other infrastructure. That's what we're talking with the Wilson Foundation about, providing greater infrastructure. So it's not just basketball, but whether it's playgrounds or other facilities so the community can use them. And two, where we can help is to program the courts. So we started programming the courts this summer. So it's not just basketball and clinics and camps, which we do well, but it's providing yoga and physical training for the community. And I think you said it in the earlier panel, it's listening to the community. We met with the community leaders as we did these parks and getting their input, what they want. Mm-hmm. So to make them feel ownership here. It's not just us doing it. And that to me has been the greatest thing for me really in the 4 years. While we want to win games, and we're trying, and I think our team is getting better, the most gratifying part of the job for me is the many friendships and the partnerships we've created, because you can't do it alone. We can do some parts well, like provide basketball and knowledge that we have in our areas, but Detroit is blessed with many great foundations, starting with the Ralph Wilson Foundation, and partnering with, whether it's with foundations or other businesses, or a hospital like Henry Ford, where together we can do much more for the community and serve the community and its needs.
You're doing an amazing job, and one thing that struck me when we were backstage, you talked a little bit about, we were talking about sports specialization at a young age, and you got to the conversation about, it's not just about basketball and some of these investments, some of the courts, they're multi-sport courts. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that diversity of play for kids and how this investment can spur that as well?
Well, my experience, first off, as a player agent, all my players would tell you if they were interviewed here today that the best athletes play multi-sports growing up. They don't specialize really till they get to 9th or 10th grade. They grow up playing basketball and football or soccer or baseball or running track or other things. that they felt that having a multi-layered experience gives them a much more, they don't get burned out, they have fun, they learn different techniques and aspects, and that which they can incorporate ultimately in the sport they ultimately specialize in. And so whether it's Kobe Bryant, or Tracy McGrady, or Nomar Garcia-Parra, or Jason Giambi, they would all tell you if they were here that they played multi-sports throughout their life, and that it helped them. And for us, we realized basketball is the hook. It's the foundation. The courts were important to the city, and it's an attempt to revitalize the park and make them look nice. And, but really, for people of all ages, young people, there may be a playground set, maybe chessboards. It could be a variety of activities. It could be, having soccer fields. We want to make this all-inclusive, and we want to serve the neighborhood. And it's not just to have a basketball court and just have a few kids play basketball. It's a way just to bring them in, and then hopefully open their eyes to many other activities that can be at these parks, and really bring life to these parks.
You're doing amazing work. As I'm sitting up here, and I hope you all see it too, we've got a professional sports team, and we heard earlier about what they're doing in Barcelona. Mayor Brown leading the city of Buffalo, and then a community effort that's grown over the last 20 years. And what has struck me is, one thing that we talk about a lot is collaboration. Each of you have talked about that. So I want to go back across the panel and leave this for each of you to answer, is what does that mean to you, and why is it so important to make a difference in the community?
Well, starting with the Pistons and our owner, Tom Goris, we really believe that the team is a community asset, and that our mission really is to create partnerships that will bring positive change and improve the lives of young people in the city. And that really is our goal. And really, we can't do it alone. We realized that very early on. We have a great platform. We can bring our assets and resources to the table, but we need to work with great partners like the Wilson Foundation and like Henry Ford Health System, and our two great examples, where together we've been able to achieve a lot more. So we can bring some basketball expertise. Wilson Foundation provides strategic overlay about what works, what doesn't work, and then working clearly with the city and with civic leaders, we can all together work and create something that's going to be really meaningful and lasting and make a real difference in this community and help it really recover and really, to me, bring long-lasting change to this community in a positive way.
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor?
That point is powerful. I don't think there's any organization that can do it alone. I know that in governments all across the country, in most cases, there's just not enough resources to do everything that needs to be done to invest in parks and recreation the way we would like to. So we have to collaborate and partner with organizations like the Wilson Foundation, the Police Athletic League, the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, county government, state government, the private sector. That collaboration is critically important. The collaboration with citizens. We want the investments that we are making in parks and playgrounds and recreation facilities to be citizen-driven. We want to really hear the youth voice, the family voice, the senior voice. That engagement of the community makes for better projects, and it helps to inform how the city spends money, how the city partners with other entities, and at the end of the day, it produces a better product for creating good quality of life in our community and other communities.
And I just want to pause and make a comment there. As we've worked in the city of Buffalo, and we've collaborated on a couple of initiatives. You and your team, I mean, it's not just words. It's real, and you've challenged our organization and other organizations in the community to listen even more. And I just want to take my hat off to that initiative. It's not just putting those words out there. You all are doing that every day. Anita,
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You know, it's almost like when I say my remarks, it's like we rehearsed them. It's a great segue because, again, my part of this panel is more of the grassroots. And your question, JJ, is kind of why and what drives us. And quite honestly, at the end of the day, our parks and recreation and our trails are kind of our quality of life, you know, and our jobs come and go. Our life's journey come and go, but at the end of the day, being out in nature and sitting, to me, is what transcends all of our conversation, all the great partners. But at the end of the day, I guess what drives us is seeing, you know, somebody sitting in a park. And we say this often on the water trail is, you know, let's at least get people to the river, you know, and it doesn't have to be a grandiose, very expensive kayak launch. Let's just put a park bench, as simple as a park bench, and let people relax. So that's, I guess, really what drives Downriver Link Greenways, is at the end of the day, that vision of people walking along the trail, the grassroots people, of getting everybody to our trails and outdoors, and it transcends our whole life journey, is being outside on trails. So, yeah.
Just to follow on, you know, collaboration can help us with, you know, working together can get at that culture change. But one thing that is always in the back of my mind when we talk about these capital investments, how do we make sure that they're sustainable for the future, for future generations as we talk about this culture change? So I just want to leave that question and Arn or the mayor, you know, how do you view this as you're making these changes in the community? How do you ensure that they're sustainable and they're there for generations to come?
Sustainability is critically important. You have to plan for the sustainability of assets that you invest in. I know with the Wilson Foundation and the investment that you're making in Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Centennial Park, we talked a lot about sustainability and what it would cost to sustain that facility for generations to come. We were able to build that in to the funding model. We do that with a lot of the investments that we make in the city in sports facilities and recreational facilities. We build in sustainability. We plan for sustainability. The last thing you want is to build out something that's important to the community and 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, see that thing that the community was so proud of, that the community is utilizing and enjoying, fall into a state of disrepair. So I think as we think about all of these investments in sports and recreational facilities, sustainability has to be an important part of the conversation.
And just to turn that question just a little bit for you, Arn, as you look at your commitment to build these courts, and you talked about the programmatic elements, and I know Police Athletic League and the other community entities in Buffalo are doing the same. How do you look at your commitment to ensure that sustainability and really be that true partner with the city?
Well, I think it's a combination of when we came downtown or when we had our discussions, working with the mayor. It's not just us. That was an important part of our discussion. How are we going to keep these vital and in good shape, and so that the community can enjoy it? And really, that was part of our deal with the city, that we would both make sure that these would stay in great shape going forward. So again, we couldn't do it alone. We needed their help. We need to make them safe. It's not just keeping them in good shape, but also keeping them safe so children can feel that they can come in any time of the day, or mothers can take their kids to the parks at any time of the day. So that was one thing that we negotiated heavily, was to make sure that they would stay, that we would have the city's help and cooperation in maintaining these courts. And two, I would just want to add, in the times that we live, I think it's so important now, because sports is, I think what we're all saying, and I'm sure all the other panels, sports is a unifying force. In our society today, there are so many problems, and it is so divisive, and what we don't want is tribalism. We want to bring people together and unify our country and unify our communities, and sports has an important role. And I think that's what the Wilson Foundation recognizes, and all the participants on these panels probably have spoken about. And it is vital that we all in every way that we can make an effort to help bring people together in this community and stop gun violence and stop the things that are pulling us apart and bring us together. And this is a very important point.
I 100% agree. And it was almost right on cue because now it's time for the question and answer session. So thank you for that. So I'd invite everyone to send us some questions for the panel, and I have a couple that have already been teed up here. Let's start with the first one, and this is probably for Anita. Why are trails and greenways important for the success of parks, public spaces, and play in general, especially areas that have been developed in car-centric ways?
First of all, trails, at least in Downriver, they are easily accessible. They go through neighborhoods, and you quite honestly, just walking and running and playing, you don't have to necessarily even be in organized sports. You can just enjoy outside natures, and it's not a huge investment getting the infrastructure in. But again, kind of going back to my comments is, trails can transcend any type of outdoor recreation, sport activity. From walking to playing and fun runs and with not a big investment.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I think Anita said it well. Trails, again, are unifying. They bring people together. They are investments that are more passive. So you can walk, you can run, you can ride. I know that on an old rail line in the city of Buffalo, residents of our community campaigned for us to put in a trail where people could walk, where they could walk their dogs, where they could bicycle ride. And it is one of the most well-used areas in our community, and it actually brings people not just from that neighboring community, but from across the entire region to use that facility. So it really has a unifying effect. It is passive, it doesn't have to be programmed, and people can make their own fun.
And I think, Mayor, a good point that I think is worthy to bring up is also the non-motorized transportation aspect. I mean, transportation, our trails as a transportation facility is also important. I know particularly in Flat Rock, which is one of our keystone, I was recreation director at the time, we actually built the community center based on the trails. Trails was going in first, part of that Downriver Summit. Flat Rock offered to be one of the keystone projects, and when the time came for us to put in our other recreation facilities, we actually built everything around that trail system. So now we have kids that are using their bicycle, and families. We've started a great program. We now do a youth triathlon, and the kids are actually riding their bikes to get to the triathlon. So they use the pool that we build in the community center, but it's a non-motorized is really a very key sports and programming and outdoor recreation, but non-transportation really needs to be a strong part of the conversation. It helps us get our people to where.
It's really interesting to look at how some of these regional trails and even some of the connectors to those regional trails connect those anchor assets, whether it be a school or a community center or an economic development node. But it does provide that other option that can be non-car centric. We have time for one last question. Where do we start in our communities gaining attention and support for these kinds of initiatives, especially in places which may not think these public uses of space are important or good?
I will say that many times these considerations are citizen-driven, they're resident-driven. They're people informing government, informing the private sector, informing the foundation community about what they would like to see. And I think it's important for government, it's important for the private sector, the foundations, to listen to the voices of the people. In Buffalo, we built a skate park because we met with youth in the community that said there was no skate park in the city of Buffalo. We were able to build that out. We have a growing immigrant and refugee community. They said they wanted to play cricket, so we're building a cricket field in the city of Buffalo now. So I think citizen engagement and listening to the public can drive a lot of these projects in a very positive way.
And I think, JJ, too, going back to an earlier comment that I made, is they don't always have to be big projects, large financial commitments. You know, putting a couple park benches in a park and encouraging people to walk, maybe do a reading program, start a small little fun run in a community, and just getting people engaged, and then it just kind of migrates, and people realize, oh, we could do this. I see what's going on in, you know, Southeast Michigan a little further. We could do that. So getting people really engaged, small grassroots.
And I think that's a perfect way to end the panel. It's to think small, and to make a big impact, and really appreciate all the work that you all are doing in each of your communities to make an impact for the community. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that great discussion. I also want to thank the live stream audience for joining us. We will be back with the live stream audience at about 3:20 Eastern. Now, in keeping with the theme of creating places for sport and play, I'm pleased to invite Helene Ware, President and CEO of the YMCA of